I'm the awarded for Kit Guru here at ASRock in the Netherlands with Peter Vest. Peter, who are you? What do you do?
My name's Peter Vest. I'm basically a guy from tech support, and since a few years I'm responsible for all media samples and all media contacts throughout Europe.
So to the best of my recollection, every ASRock review that Kit Guru readers have seen or read on Kit Guru, that motherboard has come from Peter.
Yes,
this chap
definitely.
Here.
I sent the board.
Excellent. And the reason we're at ASRock Netherlands is to see some new products. What are we going to see?
Well, first of all, of course, the amazing X399 Tai Chi board, which is really special.
And also
our X299 eITX, the world's only Mini-ITX socket 26 motherboard.
Which we saw at Computex, but the hardware is here. We've actually got it, well, not at this moment in my hands, but very shortly. We're going to kick off with a quick potted history of ASRock since its foundation in 2002.
Okay, well, ASRock did start in 2002 and made also then amazing boards, but in 2010 we really stepped up to become a global brand. And of course we're one of the biggest four in the world. The facts are any company calls themselves leading, and I just want to give you a few examples of what probably makes us leading. We were the first to introduce a board with 22 SATA ports like the Z87 Extreme 11, which was amazing, was the first one. Then the next amazing step was that we were the first to have these Ultra M2 with the Z97 Extreme 6, which basically used four PCI Express 3.0 lanes, which gave it amazing speed. And until today, we're the only manufacturer in the world who really had Mini-ITX board in socket 2011-3, which meaning our X99 eITX. It's still the only board in the world with these features, which is an absolute power pack.
Off the top of your head, how many awards did that board win?
No idea. The only thing I know is that all media really loved it because it's a power pack facing, in fact, it does everything the big ATX boards do, but then a mini size format.
And except one of its deficiencies was its two memory modules, and of course it's a quad channel processor, which is rectified in the X299 version.
X299, at least it comes with 4 SODIMM slots, so really you can run quad channel memory on it.
But we're going to take a closer look at that in a little while. So back to the history of ASRock. So we're in the Netherlands. We're actually, where are we in the Netherlands?
We're in Nijmegen. Basically that's where our HQ is, but in fact it's more logistics, a bit of technical support, and of course our sales staff.
And we have a huge warehouse downstairs, which curiously is split. Part of the warehouse is technically abroad. It's a very strange thing. There's a line where products enter the Netherlands. If there were products there that weren't motherboards, I think I failed to see them. It is motherboards end to end, and that supplies all of Europe and, did you say Russia?
Basically the whole continent, including Russia.
That's a lot of motherboards. So we're here to look at new products. What's the first on the list of 4 products?
Well, first product that is really sharp would be the X299 eITX. Again, the world's first only Mini-ITX motherboard in that size, in that socket.
New features compared to the X99?
New features would be indeed, of course, that now what we've done is we packed a lot of stuff on there. In fact, at the moment you can put on 3 M.2 cards, 2 running in NVMe mode, 1 in SATA mode. And of course you have now, instead of 2 memory slots, you have 4 SODIMM slots, up to 2400 megahertz and running in quad channel.
Now, clearly you've got a minimum of space. You have to cut certain pieces of hardware because you just don't have the physical space to put them. So is there any impact, for example, on power regulation on VRMs compared to a micro ATX or an ATX board?
No, because what we've done is with that, in this case, I believe we use 60 amp chokes. So power regulation is still really pretty good on this board, and the space, instead of putting everything directly on the motherboard, we use a kind of extender cards and put it really vertical, so really upright, so to save space.
And you were talking to us earlier, before we turned the camera on, about liquid cooling on this motherboard. What can you tell us?
Bits Power created a water block especially for this model, which covers not just the CPU but also the VRMs, and really gives it an amazing performance. Like usually it should be around 165 watts on air cooling, and with this water block you can go above 320 watts. So it's a real amazing power pack.
The concept of a monoblock that envelops the entire CPU and VRM area clearly has to help cooling.
Yeah, definitely. Because with a board of that size, of course, cooling is of the essence. Water cooling is, of course, great, but most water blocks, they just focus on cooling the CPU, which in fact, if for any board running high performance is not optimal.
Airflow around the CPU area on a modern board can be difficult when it's a tiny, tiny form factor. Does that give you extra headaches? I mean, X99-ITX, did you have problems with cooling? Did you have any difference with RMAs, or was it?
No, in fact, the board is sold a lot and were just only a few RMAs. Of course, if you really push it to the limit without giving it proper cooling, and cooling in the sense of airflow, you can destroy any board. But in fact, it was so amazing in power that it really had the same performance like the ATX boards that we had.
Right.
So same performance just in a very tiny board.
So if you're going to have a single GPU, a single 1080, single 1080 Ti, is there actually any purpose in having a system larger than Mini-ITX, other than the physical space inside your case?
Yeah, for people who say, okay, we love connectivity, we love a big bunch of USB ports, big bunch of SATA ports, of course, big board offers you more. But in this case, then we solve that by using these vertical kind of extender cards to put on these 6 SATA ports. The M2 slot, which is also one is on this extender card, 2 are on the bottom of the system. The Wi-Fi is also directly on the board on a card, so no slots need to be used for anything else.
It's become a standing joke, of course, where's the Threadripper ITX? The snag being is the Threadripper socket is pretty much the size of an ITX board.
Well, maybe we could manage.
Moving on to the X399 Tai Chi for Threadripper. 2 things. First, tell us about it, and secondly, Tai Chi. We've seen a few Tai Chi models. Where does Tai Chi come from?
Tai Chi basically is all about balance combined with performance and, of course, value for money. That's Tai Chi.
Now, to my mind, and this might be entirely rude of me, it sort of seems to me to be the antithesis of all the RGB bling. They're understated. They're kind of a greyish, almost steel blue kind of look to them. And if I stand 2 meters away from them, I actually couldn't tell you an X99 from an X299 from the Threadripper, apart from that socket looks a bit
huge
bigger.
socket, yeah.
Massive socket. But that's kind of the visual clue. But the Tai Chi family look seems to be very well thought through.
Yes, but it's in fact all about these 3 different items that we want to address. This aesthetics, of course. A lot of people like the way of not a very posh board with red and black and white, and just it looks a bit quiet.
Okay.
So Tai Chi, and that is again about balance.
And specifically with the Threadripper model, because it's been a busy year for socket releases and new processors and such like. So Threadripper, talk us through it.
Well, Threadripper, this one, what makes the board exceptional is, first of all, it's 11 power phases, and other brands, what they do is for all the power, they use 2 12-volt 8-pin CPU power connectors, but they put them on the same side of the board, so the board will really heat up on that under real load. What we've done is, okay, what we do is we put an 8-pin port on one side of the VRMs and a 4-pin port on the other side. So the board is cooler. It also enables us to have better control of all the voltages that run through the CPU.
And are those 60 amp VRMs or 40 amp?
As far as I know, they are the 60 amps.
Okay, across the piece. Thinking about pricing, and I appreciate your technical rather than pricing, but Threadripper, there's no such thing as a cheap Threadripper motherboard. You basically have what I regard as mid-range, and then you've got super high-end. But then considering the processors in the UK, £500, £800 and £1,000, there isn't an entry-level Threadripper.
No, there isn't.
In your mind's eye, now you've got to grips with Threadripper, do you consider it to be for the enthusiast, the gamer, or is it workstation?
I would say enthusiast and also workstation, because you can also use ECC memory, which most of the other boards don't.
So in terms of overclocking with Threadripper, I mean, full disclosure, I've actually got to get home and do a video of the X399 Tai Chi. I've got the things set up to do, so I'm quite familiar with it, but I don't want to give the game away during this. From the point of view of overclocking, I must confess I found it really easy. It was just bang 4 gigahertz, and we seem to be finding that these days. AMD 4 gigahertz, Intel 5 gigahertz, and it doesn't seem to require a great deal of work.
I know the guys in the BIOS department, they did a really splendid job. And in fact, all the reviews until so far, they say, this is the only board can really overclock. You don't have to do difficult things. It just simply runs. And a nice fact, of course, from all the media samples that I send to KickGuru. Media samples that I send are samples that I get straight from the factory. So they're always production boards. What I do, and Leo knows that, as soon as I get the board, before I send it out, I always put the latest production BIOS on there. So the board that is under review is exactly the same board as that you can find in the shop. And still with this board, we have amazing results.
If you were cynical, you might think that Peter's suggesting that some manufacturers sometimes do something different to what he just said. That's what I'm thinking he's implying. Let's move on to Coffee Lake.
Coffee Lake, at the moment, we have a number of different boards, and one of the popular boards would be the Z370 Extreme 4, which is again a bit mid between, let's say, entry and a bit higher up. ASRock decided, instead of having a huge amount of different motherboards, to focus on a smaller amount and even give the entry boards like the Extreme 4, in fact, all the power and all the stuff that the rest has. So it's capable of decent overclocking. It uses a hyper base clock engine, so you can tweak it really. It has a very sophisticated VRMs, so it's in fact it's entry board. You can use it for office use, for gaming, for overclocking. It's multi-purpose.
Now, Coffee Lake was a very curious launch. A, it seemed to come in months before we expected. B, the motherboard is frankly KB Lake 7th gen, except they've called it 8th gen, move the chipset numbers on. We've only got the Z SKU of the chipset at the moment because the others are coming, so that by definition that's a high-end chipset. Processors appear to be hard to buy in the retail market. It's a strange situation. Having said all that, there's no denying go from 4 cores to 6 cores, bump, extra performance, and it does scale. It's about an extra 50% performance in most benchmarks. Games, different story perhaps. Nonetheless, extra cores from Intel, surely a good thing.
Definitely a good thing. Only thing is that it's not compatible with the previous sockets, 1151. So the 100, 200 series CPUs you can definitely run, but with this socket you can only run the new CPU. So the previous CPUs, KB Lake, Skylake, will not run on this board. So it's indeed new.
Power consumption very similar to KB Lake despite the extra cores until you start overclocking. Once you start pushing, then the power goes up. But it does seem remarkable to me that the boards are working 50% hard, or the processor's working 50% harder, and yet the power and the heat, it's in the same ballpark, and we know it's the same socket.
Yeah, but in fact, all manufacturers at the moment, there's a few things which are important on every review, and that is, first part is, of course, overclocking. What's the capacity of the board? What can it do? Can it sustain high loads? That's one part. And the other part, and that is really what everyone's watching at the moment, is power consumption. Because what's the point of having a board that has high power consumption running in idle? So every manufacturer is focusing on two things, on overclocking and performance, and on the other hand on power consumption.
The final product we're looking at today, the fourth new product, is not a motherboard. What is it?
In fact, it's a mini PC. We already had a line of the Visions, the older models. Then we came with the B boxes, the very tiny Intel NUC systems. And we stepped up a bit using an STX format, which is basically something between NUC and Mini-ITX in size, with a standard normal CPU socket, SODIMM memory slots, decent M2 cards with SATA ports. And what we've done now is we just added 2 inches to the board, gave it even a sleeker chassis. And what we've done in these 2 inches is that we added for our models a GTX 1060 card, 6 gigabyte GDDR5, and
in what format though? That's the thing.
It is MXM. In other products, we know that you had to have a specific MXM card. They were really hard to come by. This one, in fact, you can use the GTX range from NVIDIA. You can use MXM-A, you can use MXM-B, MXM-B+. And you can also use the Quadro cards, and you can use the R4 and R5 from AMD in this one.
However, this bare bones is going to be supplied with the graphics chip installed.
The one that we supply here would be the GTX 1060 with a graphics card.
So while you could theoretically change it if you wanted for a different MXM module, it is coming. You don't have to source an MXM module that's compatible.
But this is in fact, again, the mix between performance and power consumption and size. Of course, for high-end gamers, probably they want to have the 1080 model. But for most users, this will do. And also, since it's, let's say, a slim size, we also want to control the heat that the CPU is running, so 65 watt TDP.
What is the CPU? We didn't get to that. What is the CPU in it?
The CPU in it at the moment, the board that we have is B250, so it would be Intel 200 series board, so Skylake, Kaby Lake.
Right. And 65 watts. And looking at it, going back to the original question about why do you need anything bigger than Mini-ITX, and you look at the NUC and now this with a GTX 1060, and you have to ask yourself, who needs a beige tower PC, an ATX format if you're shopping on Amazon, doing your eBay and such like. This is a fully spec'd PC.
It is a fully spec'd PC, especially with this SO DIMM slots. Again, this model has 3 M.2, of which 2 are Ultra M2, one is for SATA. It has 2 SATA ports that can run the 5-volt 2.5-inch drives like SSDs. There's place also for 2 SSDs in it.
And the power supply is an external unit, it's a laptop type power supply. It's approximately 50% the size of the base unit.
Yeah,
it's a large power supply. It's about 220 watts rated, but then the GTX 1060 is a proper graphics card, plus you've got the processor. However, nonetheless, exciting. When is that mini PC going on sale?
It should be on sale at the moment.
Right, and that retails in the UK for approximately?
As far as I'm aware, it would be around 700, 750
right.
euros. So.
Yes, which is £750 as things stand. So that's 4 new products. We've got the Mini-ITX X299 that we've been waiting for since Computex. It's here. We've got Coffee Lake, we've got Threadripper Tai Chi, which I am doing a review of, well, not as we speak because I'm here, but soon. And we have the mini PC with GTX 1060 graphics. Okay, so to sum up, I'm Leo Walter for Kit Guru here with Peter Fest from ASRock in the Netherlands. We've seen 4 exciting new products, had a look around this quite extensive warehouse. We've seen where all our review samples come from. Thanks, Peter.
You're welcome.